Look at this house, only the chimney's left. It's like the Second World War.
Olga contemplates the charred remains of the little village in which she's lived all her life. On July the 29th, fire reduced Kriusha, 270 kilometers southeast of Moscow, to ashes. Most of the buildings were destroyed in just 2 hours. Miraculously, only one person died after residents scrambled to escape. Olga managing to get away with her great-grandson. Still in shock, the 60-year-old librarian leads us to a pile of sand, all that's left of the family home.
This was it. I lived here since 1981.
The house was destroyed in just 15 minutes, firefighters powerless as the flames ripped through the streets.
The fire engine came quickly, but there was nothing they could do. They said it was because the flames were too high up in the treetops. They didn't have the means to put them out.
2 weeks later, 150 kilometers further north, as Russia's authorities insist they're on top of the wildfires, this forest near the town of Shatura burns on. They may be dressed in t-shirts, casual trousers and trainers, but these men are professional firefighters. And as they attempt to douse the flames in this vast area of woodland, the hoses are running dry.
Where's the water? The nozzle got burnt. Well, change it then. We did, and it got burnt again. The situation's critical, the wind's picking up, and the fire's heading towards a village. But we've set up our equipment, and we'll try and contain it.
The team work without masks or protective clothing. For this fireman, alone on the front line, there's relief when the water finally arrives. These scenes are a far cry from the images of well-equipped fire crews that pepper the national media. With flames and smoke all around, the local brigade make do with leaking pipes and a rickety Soviet-era fire engine. Despite reinforcements sent by the central government, they're overwhelmed and understaffed.
We're not putting this out. There's no danger right now. There's just smoke, no flames.
But it could turn into a real fire.
Of course, but without extra help we have no choice. So we'll have to leave it like this.
But even extra help might not solve the problem. Here in the peat bogs of Russia, fires like this can last for months. Even soaked in water or covered in snow, the earth continues to smoulder. And the heat comes from beneath the feet.
Peat comes from decomposed vegetation and wood. That's why it's so flammable when it's dry.
A century and a half ago, the marshes around Moscow were drained for agriculture. The Soviets developed the resulting peat as fuel, but the discovery of gas in Siberia saw its value plummet. The peat bogs were largely abandoned. Now they're just a giant fire hazard encircling the Russian capital.
These fields of peat are very deep and there are several layers. So when it burns, it's not just on top, it's deep down. Once alight, the fire spreads easily, and it's virtually impossible to control.
Back in Shatura, the firefighters are in a hurry. The smoking peat is threatening an area of woodland, and with the wind gaining strength, the fire's starting to spread. As the flames begin to torch the trees, Sergei calls HQ.
BUGAJ, слушай, дела тут неутешительные, скажу.
I've got bad news.
Верховой идет, прямо сосны горят.
The tops of the pines are ablaze.
Такая посадка небольшая, значит, на
It started in the peat bog, and it spread all along the pathway.
Пошел сюда, пошел на белую дорогу. I
don't know how big the area is, but I don't like it.
Не нравится мне это.
Sergei and Alexander can only watch as the trees are incinerated. Without vehicle access, their equipment remains back at base.
Мы стоим на болоте.
We're on the old marshes. There's a tiny bit of moisture left in the canals, but the heatwave has dried everything out.
Just another frustrating day in the backwoods during this long, hot Russian summer. As the countryside burns, Moscow chokes. In early August, a toxic smog envelops the capital for a week. More questions are asked over why Russia's ablaze, and attention falls on government reforms from 2007, which decentralised the management of the great outdoors. Critics bemoan a botched privatisation, accusing local authorities of renting out profitable forests to negligent contractors and leaving valueless peat bogs by the wayside. But in this crumbling building northwest of Moscow, there is still a department to monitor the peat. Igor Gusev's team is responsible for a region the size of Denmark. In his stuffy office, he tells us the reforms have brought both money and independence from central government.
The changes were painful but urgently needed. Without them, it was impossible. I used to work on forests myself, and now decisions are taken much more quickly.
For the Kremlin, the reforms are not the problem, but officials do say stricter controls are required for private contractors.
Some of these companies cut down a lot of trees to install electricity pylons and gas pipelines. They have the means to put in place fire prevention measures, but unfortunately you still see areas where branches and dry wood are stacked up.
Before 2007, fire prevention lay in the hands of state-employed forest wardens like Maxim. He takes us to see the woods he once helped protect 50 kilometers south of Moscow. He's angry and bitter at what's happened to them.
Look, it's totally dry. The tree's dead.
Maxim worked to keep the forest safe for 6 years, twice helping to put out fires. But like 70,000 other wardens, he was forced out of his job by the 2007 reforms.
The forest continues for another 500 meters. Then there's a big field. 3 years ago, a fire broke out there and spread 100 meters into the forest. But we put it out, no problem.
This year, with the wardens gone, the woodland burnt to a crisp. Maxim tells us he followed his father into a profession he loved, one which he says is the best way to guard against forest fires.
Picnic.
They should bring back the forest wardens. It would create jobs. If you pay people to protect the forest, things will only get better. We should go back to how it was before.
Now working as a security guard, Maxim looked on helpless as this summer's fires ravaged the forest. A marked contrast to the days when he received written thanks from Moscow.
From the Russian Ministry of Natural Resources, in recognition of your work containing and putting out fires. There you are. That's from 2002. Now none of that exists. Now who puts fires out? Nobody.
Back in Kriusha, the ruins continue to fume, but faced with mounting public dissatisfaction, Prime Minister Vladimir Putin has made a bold promise. A new house for every Russian who lost their home in the fires by October the 25th. Incredibly, the bulldozers moved in here just a week after the flames struck, and the process of reconstruction is underway.
We're getting rid of this mess. Then we can rebuild.
The effort's being paid for by the state, but private companies are doing the work. Project manager Emilio assures us everything will be finished on time.
I'm responsible for 15 plots. We've got 2 months to get the job done, but we'll try to go faster.
This first new house is already well on the way to completion. There's no official figure for the number of homes that need rebuilding nationwide, and the task of meeting Putin's deadline seems like mission impossible. But Olga remains optimistic.
They promised us the keys to our new house for November. We're hoping and waiting, and we believe that this winter we'll be in our new homes.
Rehousing people like Olga is a matter of urgency. After months of heat and fire, Russia's getting ready for another, more familiar adversary, the winter. Here in Kriusha, temperatures often hit -20.